Let's see. All right, welcome in everybody. Hey there. What's going on? All right, Stormy, let's get you on here.
Hello.
Oh, it's working.
Yay.
Hey, look at that. Very cool. All right, well, it feels good to be back. It feels good to be back doing all this again. We got a new scenery and yeah, a lot of... Yes, Alana, I know it's you.
Hi, Alana.
Back with the new scenery and our first Tuesday night back. It's been a long time, a very, very long time. 2 years. It's crazy just how fast that went by. It's been a wild, wild journey, and I think that tonight we're just going to keep it to us talking about what's been going on the last 2 years, and we're also going to talk about what is going to be coming up over the next 6 months. We do have a lot of things fleshed out, and you know, it's great that we're able to get back on and do this stuff again, and to be able to, you know, reach out and help everyone again and just get back to the way things were. I didn't expect when I got injured that it was going to take 2 years to finally get things right again, to, you know, basically get us back to even somewhat of normalcy, if you could even call it that. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I could show you, I got a fancy new scar to go along with, you know, the problems and everything that came from this. So I just want to dive into that a little bit and just touch base about basically what's happened in the last 2 years, and then we'll kind of get into, you know, some more things like what's to come and, you know, a couple other things. So let me just dive into that real quick. First of all, Stormy, always great to have you back. It's been a very long time since we've done something like this, and I'm very grateful to have you back here with me.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yes. It feels like it was forever ago, but at the same time, it feels like, you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of falling back into the groove. But a lot has changed. You know, especially in my life. I don't know about yours as well, but it's been a lot of changes in the last 2 years.
I think you have had the most changes, but all of them for the better at the
Yes,
end.
for sure, for sure. So let's dive into that. So I talked about it if you followed along with my YouTube and with the TikTok videos I posted. I did post updates throughout this entire journey, kind of like what was going on when I could. It was a lot to deal with, but at the end of the day, basically what wound up happening was that I had a herniation between C6 and C7 of the cervical spine, and we tried many different approaches, from epidurals to I had to take 2 different EMGs. We did physical therapy. There was just so much going on over these last 2 years. I left my job in an ambulance on January 24th, 2024. And I'm still not back to work yet, but we are getting very close. And the doctors said that if everything keeps healing the way that it's supposed to, I could expect to go back to work in about 7 weeks. They want the full 12 weeks of recovery. As I showed you before, I did get surgery and stuff on my neck. But what wound up happening is that when I got the epidurals and stuff, I started getting them, I think, summer of last year. They would help a little bit. They wouldn't completely take the pain away. So basically what was happening was that they were like a temporary relief where I would feel everything was good and I would feel like oh my God, I'm getting better. Things are moving in a positive direction. But then after like a week or two, it would kind of wear off and it would just go back to what it was. And that was like one of the hardest parts, was that you had that feeling that things were getting better and moving in a positive direction. And then all of a sudden you'd start backtracking again when you tried to put any physical activity to it. I learned a lot in this time as far as how to basically reimagine how to do normal day-to-day things, like moving the laundry basket up and down the stairs. I had to drag it instead of carry it. Basically thinking about what I'm about to do before I do it, as far as, picking up the clothes or picking up my son or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of things that go along with that I had to recalculate. And the fact that I haven't been able to drive for those 2 years, that was extremely bad. You have to rely on people to get you a ride, or you're using DoorDash constantly, or whatever the case may be, to get by and, make it something. And that was very difficult. As somebody who doesn't like to ask for help with things, it was an incredibly humbling experience to have to rely on the kindness of others to get me through. Whether that be my father-in-law taking me to a ton of appointments and stuff, or, my wife, friends from work, things like that. Like, there are so many people, Stormy checking in on me every day. There were so many people that were helping in different aspects, whether it be physically there, emotionally there, what have you. It was great. And then a lot of other friends that I made along the way by doing other things, which I'll get into as well shortly. With that being said, what wound up happening was that they didn't know what was going on at first. This was a long journey of trial and error. They saw from my MRIs and my symptoms and stuff that it was believed to be a herniated disc, but then I got diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome, possibly, which I had to get tested for, and they found that to not be positive. I also got tested for multiple sclerosis, which came back negative, but I had to get MRIs to check my brain for any scarring and stuff like that. So that wasn't it. And it's just like they kept giving me the runaround. I would go see a doctor. This doctor would have an opinion. They'd send me for this test. And I'd go see another one, and then it'd be the same thing. The neurologist that I was seeing was just sending me through the loops, and things weren't getting taken care of in a timely fashion. And it wasn't until I got referred on to a pain management specialist, Dr. Youssef, who believed what was going on with me and wanted to pursue it and go down it. And then we noticed differences when he was giving me the epidural shots. And the epidural shots, what they wound up doing was creating somewhat of relief. So then they started narrowing it down. Well, if they're creating somewhat relief, then we basically have the spot that's affected narrowed down, because the other things, they wouldn't be so affected with the epidural shots themselves. So, you know what I mean? It was a trial and error thing. And then last summer, so almost a year and a half later, they finally narrowed down that for sure this is what they're believing to be the problem. So with that being said, we kept moving on and kept getting closer and closer to things. And during that time frame, they had prescribed me all different medications to try to help with the pain, because the pain, especially in the beginning, was extremely, extremely painful. It felt like someone was tugging on the back of my eyeballs, and my vision was messed up. I was having pain from up here behind my ear at the base of my skull all the way down into my left shoulder, and then into my hands to the points where they were locking up and going numb. I was having pain in my right leg underneath my knee all the way into my foot too, where sometimes that would go numb and it would be difficult to walk and stuff too. So that was another painful thing that was coming from it. So with all that being said, I tried my best to make it through it and stuff, but they gave me the medication. One of the medications they gave me was naproxen, and it was a high dose of naproxen. They wanted me to take it pretty often, and what wound up happening was that I got a stomach ulcer from it. So they had to do an endoscopy, and when they did the endoscopy, I guess that's when they determined what was going on. So they had to put me on omeprazole, and like it was just a thing that just kept going and going. And my eating got screwed up for an entire year, to the point where I lost 22 pounds in like 6 months, because I was only able to eat very bland chicken and water. So, you know, having that kind of diet definitely, you know, push things out, and it wasn't super good to you know, really go through. But with that, positive things came from that. So one of the positive things that came from that is sobriety. So I am happy to say for the first time in my life that I have been completely sober since July 28th of 2024. No alcohol at all, no intentions on going back to that, nothing. I also have been smoke-free since August 8th of 2025. So a lot of positive things came from that. The smoking I had to quit because they told me they wouldn't do the surgery if I kept smoking cigarettes. So that was an unwilling quit, but I had to do it. I don't really notice a difference. I'll be completely honest with you, but it is what it is. The alcohol was a voluntary thing. It was something that I had been wanting to walk away from for a very long time, and I actually wound up just pulling the trigger on it, which is a story for another time. But I do feel great, and I'm very happy that that happened. And I'm getting close, a few months away from 2 years sobriety. So that is a big thing that I never thought was going to be a possibility in my life. It was not something that I truly wanted until that time had come. And I'm just glad that it was one of those things that worked out that way. And, I'm looking forward to all more years of sobriety, and, it is what it is. In that time frame also, I started dating. I started dating as I got injured. I think I talked to that in a prior video. I started dating who is now my wife. She was there with me through thick and thin through all of this, and I greatly appreciate her and everything that she's done. And we wound up just getting married in our dining room because of my injury and stuff. I couldn't go and do anything official or anything like that. So we are legally married, but we just did it in the dining room. And we have a son. We had a baby together. His name is Jackson. I'm very excited to talk about him. He's 8 months now. He was born in July of last year. A lot of big changes happened during this time. Although yes, definitely the cutest baby ever. He is. He is a little ham, and he's extremely loud, but he's adorable. But what wound up happening is that it put a lot of deterrence against me because, at times I couldn't pick him up. There'd be times where I can't keep up with him and stuff like that because of the injury. And it just made the whole thing a lot more complicated. And if you know me, it was just something that I always wanted. I was always longing to have another child. I feel like that I got gypped in raising my first one because of the court system. And, it was just a piece of me that felt like it was missing. So it was kind of nice to be able to have that part of me kind of mended and to be able to, be a full-time dad. That was a big deal for me, and I really, looked forward to that, and I'm very grateful every day that I get to do that. And, I don't get to see my daughter as much, but I do miss her dearly, and it just comes with the territory of getting older and then being injured as well and stuff too, and not being able to drive. It kind of throws a wrench into everything, but we're managing, we're pushing through. Things are good. And with that being said, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was that with this injury too, there was a lot of doubt on my part that I was ever going to get better, especially because they couldn't pinpoint exactly what was going on with me for so long, that having a history of borderline definitely threw in like the depression aspects and stuff too, which made things really difficult. It made it difficult to see through the fog and know that things were going to get better. And although I tried to use all the positive thinking and all the techniques that I had learned through therapy and stuff like that, it was very difficult, especially being in constant pain. So what wound up happening was that my doctor, my regular physician, decided that they wanted to prescribe me Lexapro. And I was having panic attacks, but I think they were mostly built around the fact that I didn't know what was going on and I was in constant pain. Because usually my panic attacks were only really a thing after a night of drinking. Very seldomly throughout the year it would happen, but it was mostly after something like that. But they wanted to put me on it regardless, and what wound up happening was that they put me on it. It was, I believe, Memorial Day weekend. I took it on a Sunday morning going into Memorial Day Monday. I felt the symptoms at about 7 o'clock at night when I took it. It was about noon when I took it. I felt it about 7 o'clock at night. It was the worst experience, even over this injury, that I have ever experienced. It was nonstop suicidal thinking. It was panic attack after panic attack. The room felt like it was closing in on me and suffocating me. All I could think about was just dying, and this wound up lasting for 6 days. And on the sixth day, I wound up landing myself in the hospital. It was actually Stormy who suggested to try Benadryl to help me get some sleep because she knew I was going through hell, and I couldn't sleep. But I tried it, and then I come to find out that I'm allergic to Benadryl. So, yeah, I wound up landing in the hospital that night at midnight. Yeah, Steve wound up taking me to the hospital because my throat was closing up and my legs were locking up and I felt like I was going to die. So luckily, we only live exactly 1 mile from the hospital. So he wound up taking me there, and they got me all fixed up. I got released at like 4:30 in the morning. Uh, so that was a big deal.
You can't take Benadryl.
No, so I can't take Benadryl. So I found out I'm allergic. Well, I knew I was allergic to penicillin and poison ivy, but apparently Benadryl as well. I have like some adverse reactions to Benadryl. Well, that's one way to find out. You know what I mean? It's just like the cherry on top of dealing with the pain from my neck, dealing with the symptoms of the Lexapro, and then just throwing that right on top. Like life was getting real bad for a while, and it got to the point
Yeah.
where it got to the point where Steve was recognizing how bad I was going through it and stuff. And we had come to the resolution that we would try to at least get outside and get fresh air or something like that, something within the tolerance of my injury to kind of keep me from locking into a deep depression and like feeling terrible about it. And what wound up happening was that through that, Steve took me to a lake where he used to take his son when he was a kid in Pennsylvania. And honestly, it was like one of the things that saved me at that moment in time. He took me out on the water on the boat. I have pictures of it. Like I'm in my full neck cast and stuff like that because I was in so much pain. And he just got me out on the water, and I'm just sitting there taking in the serenity of everything that's going on. And I was just like being able to breathe again kind of thing. And, it's just one of those things where you just need it. Like it's the huge weight off your back, and just that release. It definitely saved me from going in the wrong direction with this whole thing. And I'm very grateful that I was able to do that and get that fixed, and that he was able to take me to that. And it's a beautiful place that I'd love to visit again. Take the kids out in the water and stuff. I think it would be a great time, and it's not that very far from here, so that's another cool thing about it. And with that being said, there was another thing that actually wound up helping me through this entire thing, because that was like a temporary relief to get me to swing into the next direction. And the actual thing that really started helping me, honestly, was I was sitting here, and my mother-in-law actually is a reseller. And, that's how I met her, was she would come into the post office all the time and she would drop off her packages. And then I got to talking to her, and then she kind of played matchmaker to set me and my wife up. And in that token, she had suggested if I was feeling up to it that I could get out of the house by kind of going and hanging out with her and watching her, do what she does when she does her thrifting. Hey, what's up, RK? How's it going, brother? So she had suggested to me and this, like, to get out and see what she was doing. So I said, you know what? Like, let me give it a shot. Let me see what's going on. So I was watching her, and she was doing the thrifting, and I just thought it was so cool. Like seeing that treasure hunt and seeing how she could take something that she got for, $1 to $3 or something like that at most of these thrift stores, and then rolling them into things. And she sells a lot of high-end women's stuff mostly, but it's just an incredible thing to like watch that. And then, I would go with her the times that I was feeling up to it and stuff to go out on the, out on the trips and stuff. And I would just watch, and I'd see things that like I was into, that, things that I would want to collect. So I was like, you know what? Like, let me try my hand at it. Let me see what it's all about. Hey, absolutely, dude. Happy to have you here. For those of you who don't know, RK is my guy. We met on Whatnot. He's a really, really good dude, and he does his reselling and stuff. Drop your links, dude, if you want people to check out your stuff too. Yes, thank you. I got a neat little scar to go with it, but we are getting better. But I went out with her and stuff. I was like, you know what? Let me try my hand at it. Maybe this is something that could keep me occupied with my depression. Yes, battle scars indeed. Yes. So I was like, you know what? Let's keep it going. Let's do it. I tried. I went to a bag sale at St. Joe's first. And with that, you could get a bag, like a regular grocery bag kind of, and you fill it with all these clothes, and then you only pay $5 for all of it. So you could probably fit, like, if you're good at it, maybe 10 or 15 outfits in there, and you pay $5. So no money really to put down or anything like that. I was like, let me give it a shot. So I kind of got an idea from seeing what she did. Yes, he is making a clothing brand. I've been checking out his stuff. He is making some really cool stuff. So definitely you guys keep in the loop about that. RK will let you know when that's up. But what wound up happening is that I got the pictures taken, and I started spending my days watching YouTube videos. And I would watch, top sellers like 888 Vintage or Loveless Vintage or Retro Shit. Those were like some big name people that I would watch constantly in the beginning. And I would Hustle at Home Mom too. I would watch their stuff and kind of see what they were doing, what they were selling, and try to get ideas like, okay, this is what sells, this is what's good. And I didn't realize that like there was also a lot of men that would be into reselling and stuff too. So I kind of just focused on women's stuff in the beginning. And I just did what I could. I wasn't going over the top. I wasn't doing anything against the doctor's orders. Like, I mean, the extent of my work was taking front, back, and tag picture, hanging it on a hanger, and then going and laying in bed with an ice pack and doing the listing on like Macari or Poshmark. It really wasn't anything about it. And, workers' comp knew about it. I explained that to them. They said that they didn't have an issue with it. I just needed to report my income, which I did. So there was no problem. As long as I wasn't going against the doctor's orders, like as far as driving or lifting things heavy, which I wasn't, then everything was okay with it. So I just kept it small and it was whatever. There wasn't a lot I could do in the beginning because I was in so much pain. As the epidural started helping a little bit more, I was able to, be on my feet for a little longer. I was able to, pick up things a little heavier than I used to, but not super heavy. I would say I was like less than 20 pounds. But you know what I mean? Going from not being able to lift anything to even lifting that was just a huge, huge difference. So I kept things small, and it was something that I truly was passionate about. I think I got my first sale within the first week, and just from there, it just kind of blossomed. And I extended myself out into Depop, and so that I was in Macari, Poshmark, Depop. Then I put myself into Curtsy. Then I put myself into eBay, and then eventually that led me into Whatnot as well. And over the time, you know what I mean? Yeah, and you get used to the pain. Absolutely. You do. You kind of lean into it after a while, but the epidurals definitely helped. They helped in the sense that it wasn't like it went from being a 9 or 10 every single day to about like a 6 or 7 most days. Every once in a blue moon, I might get it down to a 4, so it would be like more manageable. I didn't start feeling real relief until the very last epidural. The very last epidural got my pain levels down to kind of jumping between a 2 and a 5. On a real bad day, it was like a 5. So it was manageable, but at the same time, it was just so irritating because the pressure headaches or the hand numbness that would go with it, or like, traveling on my arm, that kind of numbness. But the vision issues were gone. The acid reflux stuff had been gone from the omeprazole. There was a lot of things, and it just was slowly getting better. And what wound up happening was that we were gearing up for surgery at this point. And the surgery was supposed to be October of last year. Prior to that, I had gone and seen a surgeon. He was some asshole that was, here in town, in the town of Sparta, the next town over in Sparta. And he didn't even look at, I have acid reflux, it sucks, been getting better though lately. Hey, try omeprazole, dude. You can get it over the counter, and you take it for like a week, and it really does help because it gets rid of all the acid that's in your stomach, so it'll give you a chance to like heal. But it's definitely something worth looking into. Hit me up after the show, I could tell you about it. So what wound up happening was that we so I saw this guy because I was suggested from my what's it called? I was suggested from my pain management doctor that I should go see a surgeon at this point. Okay. So when I went to go see the surgeon, he didn't look at my file. He didn't do anything. They were like super like against me and stuff like that. And didn't look at my file. The nurse was rude to me upon going in there, and the guy was basically like, okay, do this test like with my arms and stuff like that. And he basically just kind of like told me, you know, you're full of crap. You know what I mean? Like you don't need this and stuff. And I was just like blown away. And I go back up there and they wrote a note for me to go back to work. And I hadn't been back to work in a year and a half at this point. So I was kind of like blown away, like, whoa, like why all of a sudden is this going on? So I called my union and I called workers' comp and stuff, and they were like, there's no way, all this other evidence points to you being out for a legitimate reason, so you're going to need a second opinion. But I think what happened was that at that moment it triggered something with workers' comp for them to do a deeper investigation. So they had done a I forget what it's called. It's like an intervention. I forget. It's like an acronym. It's like three letters, but I forget what it's called. IAP or something like that. An individual medical something. Anyway, so IME, an individual medical assessment. So something like that. I don't know. But anyway, so they had this done for me, and what wound up happening was I had to have my wife take me 2 hours away. That's where they set it up. 2 hours away, deep in Pennsylvania, and when we got there, I got to meet Dr. Alistair Williams, who would later go to be my surgeon. I met him. I explained everything to him. At the time, though, I hadn't had an EMG done yet, which is where they do like kind of like an electric shock going up your arm. And it's kind of to see where like the pinched nerves and stuff are at that point. I hadn't had one of those done yet. And I hadn't had an updated MRI. So he was just basically going off of word of mouth and like the little things that I did have. Hey, love you too, brother. Thanks for popping in. Thank you. So what wound up happening was that they did that assessment, and then that was done in April. They didn't get the results until August. Okay. Really weird that it took that long from it to get to the doctor to workers' comp. But in the meantime, when I saw Dr. Williams, he had said to me, when you get your EMG done and stuff, if you want, and they come back and say you need surgery, you can come see me and I'll hook you up with somebody that'll do the surgery, or myself or whatever. So I said, okay, got the EMG done. It came back. It said I had compression in C7. Okay, so you need an updated MRI, which proved that I had compression in C7, and you need an EMG done to show it. Now, they both showed that I have a problem in the same spot. So now it's time for surgery because the epidurals aren't taking care of it. So now I have all the evidence I need to do the surgery. So I go and do exactly what he suggested. I went and I contacted him and let him know that, hey, I got everything here. And he was skeptical about it because he said, I don't know, because I did that assessment on you. If I can be your surgeon, we have to look into it. So I called workers' comp. They were cool with it. He called workers' comp. They were cool with it. So everything was proceeding as normal. The surgery was scheduled for like early October. Okay. I quit smoking like they told me I had to do in August. Everything was cool. Everything was moving on. And then like 2 weeks before that, they changed my workers' comp person. And all of a sudden she had a problem with the surgery, or with the surgeon being the guy who did this individual assessment on me. And the fact that they got this thing back, and the thing they got back was his assessment. And in his assessment, he said that he didn't have enough conclusive evidence to definitively say that I need the surgery and that this was what the problem was. But if he had more evidence, he would be able to do it. But with the evidence he's given, he thought it was just a bad sprain or something like that, and that I should return to work on a light duty notice. But then, a month later, now he's taken on my surgeon and he's willing to work on me and do this because he got the results of the stuff he needed. They didn't look at it that way, so they wound up postponing my surgery like a week before it was supposed to happen. And Yeah, so it was like a week before is when they finally told me it was being postponed because the investigation started 2 weeks before. So a week later, they told me it was going to be postponed. I waited all this time to get the surgery, and now I'm in the end game, and they postpone it. Terrible. But what wound up happening is that they had to send me to another doctor, another one of their doctors, to be evaluated. He came back the same thing. I do have an issue, exactly where they said it was, and this is what's going on. So what wound up happening is that I got the clearance from them. The investigation turned out to be nothing because there was nothing to hide. And then they approved the doctor to give me the surgery, and I wound up getting the surgery on February 11th of this year. Now, with that, I was in the hospital for overnight. The first 2 days were kind of rough, but things got better after that, and I wore a cervical collar for 2 weeks. And I was able to take it off after that. I am still on restriction right now. I can't lift anything more than 5 pounds, and they don't want me doing any excessive bending or twisting. So I've kind of just been taking it easy, watching a lot of TV and hanging out. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to do. I will be going back to the doctor next Wednesday, at which point, if everything is going good, they'll allow me to start resuming normal physical activity. And they want me to just do normal stuff around the house and everything like that. And just do that for 6 weeks. And if everything's cool at that point, then they're going to release me to go back to work, which I'm excited about. I'm very excited to go back to work. I've waited a very long time for this. And, I'm excited to get back and doing this. I mean, if you look at it, we're back to doing our lives. This is our first live in 2 years.
It's crazy.
Isn't it crazy? It was one of those things that when I first got injured, I did not expect that it was going to take this long. And I remember telling everybody that, like, oh, we'll be back. And if you watch the last couple Tuesday night healings, you'll see me like really struggling through those lives because the pain was so unbearable. And then if you were around that time, you'll know how many I canceled and how I had to keep postponing and stuff. And I didn't want to do that to anybody that was coming in to get genuine like healing and stuff like that. That's not right to constantly be putting you guys to come in and want to see the lives, and then they're being postponed week, 2 weeks, sometimes not at all. They're not happening. Like, I just didn't want to have that happen anymore. And I felt a tremendous amount of guilt about that. So I just called it at that point. It had become too much to the point where I couldn't do it, and I couldn't keep a schedule. So, at least with the reselling and stuff like that, there was no schedule to be kept. If I was well enough to post a couple pictures, then I was. If I wasn't, then I wasn't. There was no guideline strictness, anything like that. So, what wound up happening is that I got the clearance to drive again. So I got that a week or two ago, and I have driven since then. It's the first time in 2 years. It was a little rocky in the beginning, after not driving for so long. Getting my body used to driving stick again and just, doing the driving myself. The biggest problem I had was the jerking of the gas and brake in my neck going back and forth and stuff like that. And then, looking left and right when I'm driving. It's a lot going on. You don't realize how much you're moving your neck and stuff until you actually take a second and think about it. So
That's true. Very true.
right? And, apparently with this injury, because where it is like you can kind of see here where it is, but it's because they went down. The injury is actually between my shoulder blades on the back side, but they go through the front and they remove the disc. They put something new in its place, and then they bolted 2 screws and a plate, and then they stitched it up. So that's basically like what happened with the whole thing. I don't have limited mobility or anything, at least from what I can tell. It does hurt when I turn my neck too far left. Like any further than this, I feel pain. I notice it especially at night when I lay down. If I'm laying on the pillow like this, and then all of a sudden I switch to the other side, I'll wake up and feel it. And then if it's pressed on, so if the top of my head is pressed down or my back is pressed, I also feel that too. It's not like a numbness or anything like that. I do have like mild numbness, like very mild right in my shoulder that sometimes goes down into my hands. Like right now I have it in my shoulder, but they said that's normal after being compressed for 2 years, that eventually it'll just fade on its own, but it just takes time for the nerve to repair itself. That's why they give it the full 12 weeks, even though like you're feeling better, they want that full thing. Because I mean, the worst thing in the world is that I go to the post office or something to go back to work, and I go to pick up a package, and then boom, I pop a screw or I hurt myself, and now I'm out again, and I got to go through this whole process again. So they want to make sure from a legal standpoint and everything that I'm good, I'm clear, and everything is just like what it needs to be. I think we just hit something, Stormy. I think you sent me a rose. I think we hit some sort of I don't know. It's been so long, but we hit something. So
Yeah, we
thanks.
had kind of goal, live goal.
Oh, cool. All right, that works. Um, so what wound up happening is that I lost my train of thought there for a second, but now things are getting better. Things are moving in the right direction. I can start committing to a little more normalized schedule, like as far as the lives go and stuff like that. And, it's just better now that I can be more attentive and start living life a little more normally. I am practicing driving on average about 3 times a week right now because I want my body to get used to it. And one of the things I want to get used to is I'm going to be picking up my daughter this Friday. I haven't seen her in a while because she was down at Disney. And I'm going to try to drive myself down there and see how that goes. And that right there without traffic is a bare minimum of a 2-hour round trip ride. If I can do that and not have issues, then I would say I'm pretty solid to be heading in the right direction to be fixed and stuff. So that's going to be like kind of where I venture things at. So I'm excited at it, but I'm also nervous. I'm going to try to drive tomorrow and Thursday a little bit just to make sure everything's working correctly, because I would hate to be halfway down there and have an issue and be stuck. So I'm going to take it slow and see, but I got to know. The longest I've driven now since I've gotten better is about an hour and 15 minutes. So it's close to that 2 hours, but not the full 2 hours. And that is a long ride. And with traffic, which usually happens, especially on a Friday, it's more like a 2.5, 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I'm going to bring my wife with me in case there's an issue. She can take over or something. And then if everything's good, then when I got to bring her home Sunday, I'll do it on my own. But we are moving in the right direction. I did want to introduce you guys before we get into what's going to be coming in the next 6 weeks to the brand. So I've been doing the online reselling and stuff. Like I said, I'm sure you guys can see it behind me. There's a ton of stuff. I stopped going by indie author Nick Bellisi on here just because all the resellers and stuff know me as Bellissimo. That's my online handle. And the company I created is Dead Threadz, New Jersey. I got a tattoo because honestly, it's something that's super important to me. It's something that gave me a lot of joy and definitely saved me through this entire thing. And I'm proud to wear it. I'm proud that I came up with it. It's doing so well. If any of you guys are any of the people that bought from me, thank you so much for showing all the love and support. I try to get you guys the best stuff that I possibly can. If you're new to buying from me, it's band tees and skate that I specialize in. However, that's not the only things that I do. I have a lot of streetwear. I have polo. I have sports stuff, jerseys, shirts, jeans, Y2K, you name it. I probably got it. So I sell on Depop, Mercari, Poshmark, eBay, and whatnot. You can check me out on any one of those. If you go into my bio, you can click on my link tree and it'll take you to all of my links. And then that's how you can see everything. Feel free to shoot me messages, anything about it. I will always work with you, but it's something that I'm severely passionate about. And, the writing and stuff, my wife had said something to me a couple months ago. I was taking it very seriously, like trying to get you guys the best stuff and constantly sourcing online, because most of the stuff I source is online. Going to the actual Goodwill and all that stuff, like I did a little bit in the beginning, but it was becoming too much with my neck, like getting rides and walking around and doing all that. So I found a way to source online. So most of my stuff is sourced online and just delivered to my house. So that's why I said, like, I wasn't going against the doctor's orders or anything. I was literally from the comfort of my home in my bed ordering stuff. The post office would bring it. I'd open it up, take pictures of it, hang it up, go back in bed and post them online. It really wasn't. It's not a complex thing. It's really not. And I found that now I would say that I 95% source online and only 5% actually go to the Goodwill and stuff like that. So it's just something that works for me. However, if you guys have been following the TikTok and stuff, I have been posting content of the times that I did go and stuff like that too. So you guys can see, some of the things that were sourced. So keep up with those videos and check them out. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. And there's going to be a lot of videos coming out. I'm trying to post every day. That's just an unrealistic thing to accomplish when I go back to work, but at least for the 6 weeks that I am going to be recovering still, I'll be able to give you guys a lot of content to build the page up and show a lot of activity and stuff that's going on and kind of get you guys into what I'm doing. Now, the future of the channel and stuff on where I see it going, there's going to be a lot of thrifting stuff on there, a lot of reseller tips and stuff like that. I'm going to be talking about what's sold, what's hot, how I'm doing, how I get my stuff, and stuff like that. If I find out that you guys are interested in it, I'll keep doing it. If not, we will just rework that. We're also going to continue with our Tuesday night healings. We are also going to continue with the books. If it's your first time watching my videos or stuff, then I'll explain that to you in detail. I am indie author Nick Belisi. I have written 2 books, The Souls of Paradise, Family is Forever, and Paradise Lost. Or Paradise Reborn, my bad. The 3rd book, which I was almost finished with when I got injured, is Paradise Eternal. That will be released this year. I am going to start writing it again, probably around the time I go back to work. I just want to make sure that I'm not in pain, because the reason why I didn't do it while I was out is because the typing and stuff was causing a lot of pain going up my arm. So I wasn't able to do that, and I didn't want to half-ass it. So I just, at that point, didn't do it. But there's 4 chapters to be left. It's got to go through the review process. And Stormy could attest, it has a satisfying ending. If you've seen the other two, or if you've read the other 2 books, I think you will be satisfied. You tell them, Stormy, what did you think about it? Because I let Stormy hear the ending. So,
Well, I think the ending fit just from the series itself. I mean, there has to be an end, a beginning and an end. So I think you did a really good job with the way it ended, and it definitely fit with the subjects of the other 2 previous books. Tied it all in really well in the 3rd final book.
for sure. And like I said, it was always going to end this way. I didn't know from the very, very beginning this verbatim, this is how it was going to end, but I had an idea in my head on how I wanted it to end. And the reasoning behind it is when the book is actually published and we do our Thursday night readings, when I get to the end, I will give you guys the exact reason why it had to end that way and why I chose it to end that way. And if you read the second book, it was a tearjerker. It did upset some people. I know Stormy was one of those people because it's a very sad ending. But when you hear what happened with the 3rd book, it brings a logical conclusion to that, and it kind of allows you to understand why I went through it. And again, when I explain in detail what happened, because it kind of leaves you to wonder what really happened, I'll explain to you what really happened and why I chose that. If you want to check out the books, you can either go on my YouTube and watch me read them to you, or you can go on Amazon and you can purchase them. The link is in my bio. You can Google my name, Nick Belisi, and it'll take you to the books as well. That's another thing that you can do. Like I said, or what we do on Thursdays, or what we were doing before my injury, is I was reading the books to you. And I plan on this Thursday picking up where we left off and continuing that. I want to see how this live goes first, because talking in the past, moving my jaw and stuff as much as I am now has caused pain. So I want to see where I'm sitting when this live is over. So I don't want to commit 100% for Thursday, but I will post something tomorrow stating whether I'm going to do it or not. But I'm leaning more towards yes, because I need to get myself back on a schedule. I need to give myself something to look forward to and to keep striving to get better. So for now, we'll pencil it in that it's a yes, but I will give definite confirmation tomorrow. I believe we're on chapter 12 or 13 of book 2. So that'll give you guys a full time to catch up now if you want to jump on the YouTube and watch our prior videos about it. Book 1 is very short, so it goes by very quickly. And, about an hour per chapter when I get onto the 2nd book. But it's all on the YouTube. This video will also be on YouTube. I am working I'm working on getting simulcasting going. So I will probably be streaming from a laptop next. And there's a program that will stream on TikTok and YouTube at the same exact time. So that way we can have the long format for TikTok and then the Horizon one for YouTube. So that is another thing that I'll be working on tomorrow. And I think I got it down, but I didn't want to test it tonight because this is more like our test tonight is getting back into doing things. I wanted to see how everything was going, get used to running the lives again. It's been so long that I needed a refresher. Speaking of the lives, if it's your first time in our Tuesday night healing, Stormy and I started this about 3 years ago. We had been doing it for an entire year before I got injured. And basically what happened is that I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I got my first official diagnosis when I was 21, I believe. 21. When I was in the Navy, they gave me my first diagnosis of it. Since then, I think I've been diagnosed 3 or 4 more times. I think I've been diagnosed a total of 4 times with borderline. My last diagnosis that I got during my injury, because they sent me to mental health while I was doing this injury because, they didn't want me falling into a funk and stuff. According to that doctor that I saw at the MHA, they had said that I'm in remission, that I don't have at least the 5 symptoms it takes 5 out of 9 that it takes to diagnose it as active. I feel a lot better. That's not to say that I don't feel it on a regular basis. There are times and symptoms and stuff that I do feel, but I've learned how to manage that and deal with it. And a lot of that came from the help and stuff that I had seeked out years ago. After I had lost my custody battle in 2021, I decided to put myself into a therapy program and DBT. And I did all that stuff, and it was great for me. It helped a lot. It got me to start going on the right path and to stop getting as crazy as I was. Now, that's not to say there wasn't trial and error in that time, because there definitely was, and I'm sure Stormy could attest to that. But the injury was the thing that really pumped the brakes on me. And that's what really got me to fix things and to come back as a completely different person, which I'm very proud to say that I am. And, it's something that needed to happen. Unfortunately, it was very painful, and there's a lot of stuff that had to be gone through, but it was something that needed to happen. But we were doing the Tuesday night lives, and on those Tuesday night lives, like the one you're on right now, we were reaching out and helping people with different things in life. Now, I'm not a medical professional, neither is Stormy, but we both been through a lot of stuff in life, and we wanted to give back and talk about things that we knew. And the things that we didn't know, the subject matter that we decided to take on, we did extensive research on and stuff, and then gave our opinions about it. All those episodes are on the YouTube. You can check them out. If you go on my YouTube, it's at Bellissimo, same name that's on the top of the screen. And my link is also in my About Me on TikTok. So you can go on there, follow the link tree, and it'll take you to the YouTube as well. All the episodes are posted. We did a lot of fun ones like toxic relationships to insomnia, to child custody, to borderline personality disorder. I think we did 4 or 5 episodes on that one. There's a lot of cool ones that were going on. And we helped a lot of people. There were a good handful of people that reached out to me privately and wrote me letters and told me about how helpful I was to them and stuff. There's one that I actually have hanging up in my room still. And it was such a beautiful feeling. And that's really all we wanted to accomplish by it, is that we wanted to reach out to somebody that maybe felt like they were alone or something like that, and to let them know that they weren't alone, to make them feel heard, to make them feel important, to shed light on some of the stuff that was going on. And there was other content creators and stuff like that that were doing similar things, but you don't see a lot of men, especially with borderline, talking about what's going on. There's that preconception that you need to just suck it up and deal with it and stuff. And I don't think that helps anybody in the end. I think talking about it and opening up and being vulnerable is really what helps people, because when you open yourself up and allow yourself to be vulnerable, you tend to see how many people are actually out there willing to help you, to listen to you, to get you over that hump, and to basically just give you a shoulder. And then that kind of kindness, you just turn around and give back. And that little bit that you're giving back to each individual person is such a rewarding feeling, but it also makes the world a better place. And it was actually Stormy who taught me that, because Stormy is probably the kindest person I've ever met in the entire world. She's just a very forgiving and very loving person, and she has a lot of patience, which is something that most people don't have. and to be able to try to mirror that sort of kindness and love and respect and stuff like that, and to take it and not only appreciate it, but to try to give it back the best that I can, but to also spread that sort of love to people that are in need, is what ultimately built this live into something that was truly incredible. And that was us tackling difficult subject matter, trying to shed a light on it, and then be as informative and optimistic about the situations as we possibly could. Now, I have a new direction that I'm kind of going to go with the Tuesday night healing. Now, I already have it fleshed out, probably until July, I think. So I'm going to go over that real quick before we close out. Each live is about an hour long, and we're 13 minutes away from that hour. So the Tuesday night healings going forward, the schedule is March 24th, which is next Tuesday. We are going to do Who Are You Without Trauma, which is identity versus survival mode. Okay. March 31st. These are all tentatively. We may throw different interviews and stuff in its place. Tentatively, this is what it is, but week to week, I will let you know for sure what the schedule is. But we do have people that we want to interview, and a couple other lives that we're going to be doing too with the MHA and a local deli around here, GNS. So let's tentatively pencil these in, but just pay attention and I'll let you know what's happening week to week. March 31st, addiction to being needed. It's people-pleasing, savior complexes, and worth tied to usefulness. April 7th, you're going to be rewriting the story that you tell about yourself. And that's like the language and identity shifts and narrative healing. April 14th, high functioning anxiety. Okay. When you look successful, but you feel overwhelmed. April 21st, depression that doesn't look like sadness, which is irritability, numbness, and being burnt out. April 28th, emotional numbness and why we tend to shut down. So it's survival responses and then starting to feel safely again. Now we're into May. And in May 5th, why we self-sabotage when things start going well. It's the fear of loss, but also a familiar chaos. May 12th, burnout versus laziness. So rest, guilt, and productivity pressures. May 19th, attachment styles explained, like the real life version of them. So like anxious ones, avoidant ones, and secure dynamics. On May 26th, the loneliness epidemic. Why do we feel alone even when we're so connected, like with social media and everyone around us? Why are we always feeling alone? Now we're into June. June, friendship breakups. It's the grief that nobody validates. When you lose a close friend, people talk about breakups like relationships, but do people really talk about friendships ending? That chapter in your life closing and opening a new one. How the best friend can go from being your most trusted ally to your worst enemy. Nobody really talks about that. We're going to talk about it. June 9th, dating when you're healing. The trauma bonds versus a real genuine connection. June 16th, journaling prompts that actually change you. It's going to be an interactive episode where we kind of talk about, like with me, it was a big thing with me journaling and stuff like that. So talking about what I did to do that and how you guys can do it and stuff too. And we'll get into, what's productive to help with individual things. On June 23rd, how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. So dopamine, distraction, and avoidance. June 30th, the power of micro habits. I was just talking to my brother about these. They're small things that you can accomplish to get to a greater goal. Instead of looking at the big thing that's standing in your way, chipping away at it with little goals, little everyday goals and stuff to make yourself feel better, to make you feel accomplished, to get you to take on that bigger mess. Then that brings us to July. Okay. So in July 7th, you're forgiving yourself for the person that you had to be. It's a release of all the shame that you're holding on to. July 14th, letting go of the old versions of yourself. It's an identity shedding. July 21st is healing without closure, because sometimes you don't get an apology. Sometimes you don't get a reason as to why things happen to you. And it's how to move on from that. And then July 28th, the last episode of this season, is why growth feels like a loss. So it's outgrowing people, comfort, and old patterns. if you picked up on it by listening to the subject matter and stuff like that, they all have different phases, which is why it's broken up. So the first way we did it, we picked random subjects and stuff and just kind of like went from there. This is more of like a going along the path kind of thing. So if you're with us from episode 1 all the way until the final episode, you'll get the full structure of the whole thing. Now, the first phase is called the pit. The theme about it is about awareness, okay? The energy is going to be very heavy, very honest, and very grounded. And this is where people that are listening, including myself, you're going to stop pretending that you're fine. You're going to examine your trauma. You're going to examine people-pleasing behaviors and the story that you've been telling yourself thus far. And the core realization is that some parts of me were built to survive, but not thrive. The psychological shift that you'll feel happening in this is you'll move from unconscious coping to conscientious awareness. The audience of everyone being involved with this is going to feel discomfort, recognition, but then also relief. Because we want this to be positive. You're addressing things that are deep and bad, but we want it to be a positive thing. And the purpose of this is to identify the false foundations before we start healing. You can't climb until you admit where you're at. Okay? So let me go into phase 2. You call that the fire. Okay? This is April. The theme is emotional intensity. The pressure and confrontation and heat is the energy that will be felt within it. Now that your identity is exposed, you're going to feel the weight of it. Okay? I'm just reading off of the notes I took down because it's a lot to memorize off the top of my head. The topics we're going to hit in that, like I discussed before, are high-functioning anxiety, depression, masked as irritability, emotional numbness, self-sabotage, and being burnt out. Okay? What you're going to realize is you're not broken, but you've adapted. The psychological shift is going to go from feeling the shame from the last one to understanding why. Why did it have to happen? Why do you feel this way? Okay? This is where the nervous system gets explained. This is where the survival patterns are validated, but challenged. The purpose of this is to transform your guilt into clarity, to understand why. Why did this happen? How are we going to get past it? Pressure doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. Okay? Something to sit on. Phase 3, the reckoning. The theme about this is about relationships. Oh, what is this? Being told to put a puzzle in there. Okay. The theme about this is relationships. The energy is tension, reflection, and accountability. Healing alone is a theory. Healing in relationships is reality. The topics we're going to talk about is attachment styles, loneliness, friendship breakups, and dating while you're healing. I'm very excited about that one. The core realization that you're going to come across is the way I loved is shaped by what I survived. And I think Stormy and myself can both attest that we've been through some really crappy relationships, and I think that they have helped mold us into the people that we are, and we've taken lessons from them and stuff, and I think it's going to be a really cool episode to dive into that sort of thing and hear some feedback from you guys and get into that.
Yes, very much so.
Yes. The psychological shift is we're going to go from blame to ownership. You're going to own that. You're going to own it, accept it, and we're going to move on. Okay? This is where we're going to see how you chase and how you avoid and what you can tolerate. And the purpose of this is to stop repeating these bad patterns, okay? You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're ready for. And if you're ready just to get hurt, that's what you're going to attract. Phase 4, the climb. That's June. Now we're into summer. This is about discipline and tools. We're going to get a steady and strong and constructive in this one, okay? This is where everything stops being talk and starts becoming action. The topics are journaling, that's going to help, sitting with discomfort, and the micro habits like I explained before, chipping away at the bigger problem, okay? Growth is not built, but it is felt, okay? Oh, growth is built, not felt. My mistake. Read that wrong. Psychological shift is the motivation getting turned into discipline, taking the actions that we talked about stuff and doing something about it. This is practical healing, small daily choices rather than big ones, nervous system regulation, and intentional behavioral shifts. Okay. The purpose of this is to build a sustainable change. And we do that brick by brick. The last phase, phase 5, the summit. Okay. This is about release and identity rebirth. It's calm, it's powerful, and it feels earned. This isn't a loud victory, but more so quiet confidence. Okay. It's about forgiving yourself and letting go of old versions and healing without that closure, and how growth sometimes can feel like loss. Shedding that skin can feel like loss, but it's not, it's growth. The core realization about this is you're not who you were anymore. The psychological shift goes from like survival mode to self-authority, to stop doing things to make it through and owning it and doing it to keep going to make a better future. You're in charge. This is where you stop needing people to apologize. This is where you stop chasing people to validate you and your feelings. This is where you trust your evolution and the path that you are creating for yourself. Okay? It's all about integration. And I think that the closing line to leave you guys with about all of that I think is probably with our core values and stuff that Stormy and I are trying to put across when we're helping people and stuff, is you stay honest and you stay humble at all times. If you can manage being honest with yourself and others and being humble, it will make it so much easier and so much better for almost anything that you go through. Not everything needs to be a fight. Not everything needs to be an argument. Not everything is clear cut and dry. And I think that's one of the hardest things when you have BPD, is to realize that there is a gray area, that you can live between the margins as long as you're honest and humble. And if you give that same respect to people by being honest with them and being humble and appreciative for the things that you have in life, everything just gets a little bit easier. Everything just gets a little better. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways that I've taken from all of this. So that is what our schedule is going to look like going forward. Like I said, our first one will be next Tuesday. For those of you who have come in and hung out with us, I appreciate it. I love having you guys here. It feels so good to be back. And it's just been a beautiful yet strange journey the last 2 years, and painful more than anything. But a lot of growth, a lot of healing, and I am truly blessed to be here with you guys again. And to all of our old friends and all of our new friends, welcome. And I hope you guys will join us each Tuesday and stuff. Like I said, Thursday, I'm planning on doing the reading, but I will post for sure tomorrow if that's happening or not. And it'll be around the same time, either 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll just go with that. Like I said, I'll post something tomorrow about it. But is there anything else, Stormy, you wanted to leave us with?
No, I'm just excited to be back with you and excited that you're getting healed up and you're going to finish the book and you've got this new venture with the clothing. That's been kind of cool to be involved with in watching your whatnot shows and things like that. So it's, you got a lot of things going on, but they're all good things.
It is, and I wanted to speak to that too, that I haven't really done them recently, and the reason why is because I find myself, like a lot of people on whatnot, they want things for dirt cheap, and you don't make any money that way unless you're selling like massive bulk and your overhead is like next to nothing. And you just find yourself, especially with me, like with my injury and stuff, I can't like pick up the clothes and show them and stuff like everybody wants. So I kind of have to direct people to go into the shop like, hey, tell me what you want. I'll tell you where it's at. And if I have it, this is how you can get it. And a lot of people don't like that theory. It's not to say that it doesn't work, because sometimes, I'll have people come in, they'll buy a bunch of stuff, but other times it doesn't. So I've kind of taken a step back from that, and I want to focus back on what we were doing. I probably will do a whatnot show once a week. I'm aiming probably for Saturdays, if you guys want to catch that and trying to get some deals. But you can go in any one of the stores and shoot me an offer on anything in there. And as long as it's not ridiculous, I will accept it and I'll have it out for you. I'm very fair with my prices and everything like that. It's all based off of sold comp prices on eBay, and it's meticulously researched. So I'm not overpricing anything. It's all based off of normal comps. But if you check out anything on any one of the shops, shoot me a message. Tell me that you were in this live, and I will give you a bigger discount for coming in and showing, that you showed up and showed out for the lives and stuff. I will give you a discount. So just message me. Tell me you were in tonight's live. Okay. We're going to use a keyword for this one. I'm going to do this in our lives every once in a while. I'm going to throw a keyword in there. It's only going to be valid for a week. So until our next live on Tuesday, this will be the valid code. Okay. The code is clown. Just clown. So if you message me and give me the code word, I'll know you watched this live, and I'll hook you up with a bigger discount on anything in the shops. Okay. So check the stuff out. Thank you guys for joining. Stormy, always a great time to hang out with you and do these. And
Yes.
thank you for being my best friend for so long. I really love you to death. And it's been great to do this again and, have all this positivity that we're putting back out into the world.
That's right.
So, and thank you everyone else that's joined, anyone that's watching this on replay. Thank you so much for coming in. I love you guys to death, and I will see you guys again, hopefully this Thursday.